ho, ho! Welcome to the 5th show of Shake Up Groton. Can you believe that? This is the fifth show, and it will be the last show of 2017. So we will see you next year. We have a great show tonight, and look around me. There's nobody here but me. This is the first show where I'm not going to have a guest, so please be easy on me. And if I don't finish tonight, we got a lot to cover. It'll spill over into the next show, which will be on January 25th at 6:30. I don't think I've done a solo show for over 20 years, so this is a little bit of a different experience for me tonight. I hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving with your families, and we're looking forward to Christmas. Don't spend too much. Last night we had a swearing in. I went to it of the new town council, the completely Democratic town council. They didn't do much last night, except they started a rules committee, and we're going to be talking about that. And I'm going to talk quite a bit about the town council. You've been calling or emailing me at shakeupgroton@gmail.com. Please, when you email me, put your phone number in because I want to talk to you. And I had to go take pictures. You're going to see a lot of pictures at the rollout at the end of the show, and I'm getting a lot of very good feedback that this show is like the 60 Minutes of Groton. I mean, what better documentary news show there is but 60 Minutes? And people have told me, wow, we have a 60-minute show in Groton. And that's really great because we don't have much of a newspaper anymore. So that's like, I'm very happy to hear that. Okay, this show will repeat every week up till the next show on Tuesdays at 7, Thursday at 6:30, and Saturday at 9 o'clock p.m. at night. And you can always watch at your leisure on YouTube by looking up Shake Up Groton. And as I said, the next show, we're going to take a bit of a break here because we got a new town council. There's nothing to talk about. There's going to be pretty much a break for a month in town government. So we're going to do the next show on the 25th at 6:30, so on SEC TV on Channel 12. So, write it on your calendar because that's a bit of time off from now. And I want to give a thank you to Frank Folcari. He's the guy here. He's the little elf that goes around here at the station, and he does a heck of a lot of work. And this show would not be possible if it wasn't for Frank. So my Santa hat goes off to Frank. And you notice my hat, everybody. How do you like it? And it's white for a reason. We'll be opening the phones tonight. I'm going to give you the number right now. That number is 860-445-7499. Remember, this show is live. But don't call me yet, okay? We're going to go through a bunch of stuff first before you call me. Now, this show is called Shake Up Groton, which means it doesn't only, my hat's crooked, it doesn't mean it only has to be about Groton government. It can be about anything in Groton. So I'm going to bring up a major problem that I'm having at the local post office, right in this shopping center here, and with our police department. If any of you are having that problem too, please email me because it's very serious. So I'm going to show four exhibits here, and we're going to go through these. You see all those packages? Those are mine. And then let's go to number 2. You see, that's my mailbox at my house. And you see what's going on here. It's loaded with packages. And that's my mailbox. Most of it's filled with packages. Let's go to 3A. And that's same packages. No, Frank, take that off. Okay, so I want to explain what this is all about, and I'm very, very upset. Those are packages that I have no notifications, the one at the post office, that first picture, that aren't getting delivered to me, that one right there. and I received no notifications on my door about this with notices. And I once had to live for a year and a half. I've lived all my life in Groton, but a year and a half I lived in another town. And this was a crime that was going on where they don't give you notices. You have no idea that these packages exist, and they're keeping them at the post office. And they caught the guy, and he was stealing packages because after 15 days, they fall off of the Postal Service's computer system. So I went to our postmaster, and it was a very terrible experience. I took this picture at the post office, and they threatened me that it was going to be, they were going to call the police if I took a picture. So I took a picture, they called the police, I called the police. And I spoke with a wonderful police officer, his name was Lieutenant Dawson. And can we get the camera one going here? Hello, camera one. And Lieutenant Dawson is a great officer. I've known him for a few years. Very responsive. He sent an officer. We decided we're going to document the situation. And but the problem is he works second shift. So he says he's going to talk to the postmaster. We don't know the results of that yet. And so the next day I called Captain Sinagra. I've known Sinagra for years. He's been with the police. Every time I talk to him, he's retiring. And I asked to have him call me. And every time I call the police department, he's in training. And this guy, he's probably my age. He's near retirement, and I don't understand why we're spending taxpayers' dollars to go on training all the time. And he's never called me back. And this found its way around. I made that comment to the new secretary there at the chief's office, and I don't think she liked it. And I had to be reprimanded by the town manager for this. And I find that deplorable. This is not good for Groton, this type of thing. I think our police should be responsive. You know, this has been over a week now. I have not gotten a call from Captain Sinagra, and this problem is not resolved, and it's a serious problem of theft. It could be going on, and has gone on in other post offices, and your local police should handle things like that. So, and it's interesting when Captain Sinagra wants to get a hold of me, he has no trouble. I'm supposed to jump to attention, but forget it, calling me when I need some assistance. So if you're having troubles of similar type with not getting packages and not getting notices that those packages exist at the post office, please call me. And interesting, all those packages you saw there, only one of them needed a signature. So there was no reason for those packages not to be delivered to my house. Okay, so that's upsetting. All right, so enough about the post office. Let's go on to the Groton Town Council. They had a very nice swearing in last night. And this council, I'm going to go through a bit with you. This will probably be the last mention of the election part of things. The old council covered districts 1, 2, 6, and 7. In District 6 in Mystic had 4 councilors. This council is a bit more representative of Groton. They covered districts, one more district, 2, 4, 6, 7. I'm sorry, I got it wrong. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. And districts 2 and 6 are tied with 3 councilors. The city was a big winner in this because they now have 4 councilors. They doubled their councilors on the town council from what they had before. They only had 2 on the town council previously. I'm going to go through each elected member and tell you, again, it's my show, so I can say what I want. That my interaction with these I know a few of them, I don't know some of them very well. So I'm going to go through. Joe Chipperini, I sat with Joe. He runs a law office on Long Hill Road. He's a lawyer. And he previously was a practicing orthopedic. He seems like a very nice man. I sat with him for about an hour and a half before the election. And as I said, I found him to be a very nice man. But I did not find him to be overly knowledgeable about the big issues in Groton. He's got a really lot to learn. I think he's capable of that. So he's got a long way to go. He knows nothing about all these things that I've been bringing up, Balfour Beatty, Oddfellows. He doesn't know anything. But hopefully he learns. Leon Obrey, just the opposite. Leon's a longtime resident of Groton, as Joe Chipperini is, but she's been involved in politics for a long time. She has her own real estate company. She lives at the Oddfellows home, which you know I have big issues with. We're going to be talking more about it in another show. And I hope if that issue comes up again in this town council, that she recuses herself because she has a conflict there. You know, she's a business lady, but we'll see. We'll see how she does. Our new mayor, Patrice Granatowski. I have never met her. I've only seen her. I believe she served on the RTM, and I believe that she served on the City of Groton Council. She's from the city. I don't know her, but I understand when she was on the RTM, she was greatly influenced by Mark Oeffinger, which is a bad thing. But let's hope she's going to have different eyes now that she's mayor and Mark Oeffinger is gone. Rita Schmidt, she's back. If you recall, on one of my previous shows, I think it was show number 2, with Bruce Flax, our former mayor, she got the Boob Prize for being the worst mayor that we've ever had. The Democrats claim she is a placeholder, meaning once she gets in, she will resign and they'll appoint somebody else. I don't understand why they couldn't have found that somebody else before the election, and I will believe it when I see it. So I have very little hope she will do that, and I'm concerned that she's on there. She's very good friends with the folks who own Mystic Village. She's always been very supportive of them. That's in Stonington, and very against economic development here because she doesn't want competition with her friends over in Mystic, or Stonington there, the Mystic part of Stonington. So I'm very concerned about her. Rachel Franco, you saw Rachel on the show. She sat right there next to me. She's a new face. She's new to Groton politics, I believe. I think she was on the RTM. She told me that, and she told all of you, that economic development is her top priority. So let's hope. We will see. We don't know her very well. Okay, David Atwater, again, he's a newcomer here. He's from Maine. He knows nothing about Groton in our very unique and particular problems, so we'll see. Conrad Heed, he was on this show too, the third show before the election with Rachel. He was on the City of Groton Council. He is the Democratic town chairman. He is extremely supportive of economic development, and I hope he will speak up and provide leadership on this council. I'm counting on him. Rich Mrazek, the old-timer. I think this is his third council he's on. He's a real nice guy, but he's a little in the same category of Rita Schmidt, but he's much nicer. He seems to want to be liked by everyone. He takes no risks, and he'll follow the majority. So let's hope he's in with the majority. He was very instrumental with the last, and I'm not happy about it, last council of voting down the right to referendum. Juliet Parker, she served on the City of Groton Council. Her voting record is very spending-oriented. She worries me. I hope she learns a lot on this council and sticks with the others and adjusts her views. So that's 9. I'm very concerned that there's not a majority here of 5. We will see, to do what I think you voters wanted, to control costs, keep taxes down. I'm not so sure we've got it with this council. So I will see. It will be a challenge for them. I invited the 2 new councilors on the show. I got an email reply. Let me find it here. from Conrad Heed. And I'm going to quote from it. It says, "Hi, Gretchen. Have heard back from most counselors-elect, and all would like to thank you for the opportunity to go on your show, but think we need to get our sea legs and settle in. There is a lot to learn, and we'll all individually have a lot of questions to ask the town manager and department heads. We will be available in the future." I did get a previous email from him that he said that they probably would like to come on in January. So, yeah, we have the date. So, Conrad and the rest of you, Ms. Granatowski, I'm waiting to hear from you if you have the guts to come on the show. You know, the last mayor did, so let's get you on. You know, we'll work with you. You know, we're all a single team here. We want the best for Groton, right? You said that last night. So let's hope we hear from you. Okay, now, last night, I'm all alone here, so I gotta carry this load here, so please bear with me. They have not changed. They formed a rules committee last night, and they haven't changed the amount of time to speak from 5 minutes. I would like them to go back to the old ways, and we'll be talking about that. So I'm going to read my letter to the council, but I want to go back to a picture that we showed before of number 3B. And I'm bringing this up. It's not relevant to right here, but this picture gets me very upset because that man you see to the right, and there's often a lady there, and she's very nice. I talk to her all the time in front of Bank of America, right down the road here, right in front of here. And they always have a guard there. They're the only bank that does. And they have a gun on them. And I find this not to be good for Groton. You know, we're working hard trying to get to get investors here. And when you show a community that has a need for guards with guns on them to be walking around, that is not a good sign. And that is very big turnoff to investors to come here. So I'm talking to you, Bank of America, please get rid of, and I like comments on this. I don't feel any safer. I go into other banks in Groton. I don't feel any safer with that guard there. Why do they need to have a guard? I don't get it. So I am, you know, I like your input on this. I like to not have, and it costs them a lot of money to have him there, and why? So, so let me move on to what I was going to say last night if I was given 10 minutes. This is my presentation to the council. Congratulations, the easy part of getting elected is now behind you. This new council has choice to begin on the path to making Groton the newly reborn star of southern New England, or let the status quo prevail, which will assure the other guys, that's the ones that were just in, to have another whack at it in 2 years. If this council is serious about being the best council Groton has ever had, then you have a tremendous amount of work ahead of you, and you have to begin right now. There's been talk, especially from the mayor, that she wants to wait 6 months. I don't know. That's a quarter of their term. I don't know what she wants to wait for. As a 60-year resident and business owner in Groton, I think I know a thing or two about our town, and I think you should heed the advice of your longtime residents and business owners. There's not a whole lot of us left, who wear the scars of years of previous failings and deterioration. To get on track, this council needs to have the courage to look us voters in the eye and periodically and honestly face the fact that Groton has many fatal defects, and piece by piece overcome these and rebuild our town government. You must be willing to examine every line item on a budget or a committee that has existed for a long time, or a law that determines who pays taxes or not, and ask yourself if this is really needed. Is it fair to our citizen, or is it helpful to us in the future, regardless if it existed in the past? We must begin to be transparent, something not heard of often in Groton, to the citizens and business of our community, and make decisions based upon what is good for all of them. And not for the few, for what is perceived to get you or your comrades in Hartford reelected. And I'm referring to Heather Bond Summers in that one. You need to follow the needs of the people and not follow the needs of a shadow government that always seems to prevail in Groton. If Groton citizen businesses see and feel improvement, magical things will happen automatically, and you will not need to do favors for special interest groups to serve a second term. We need responsive staff, which includes line staff and management that is adamant about the economic future growth of Groton. It puts the residents and businesses ahead of their own egos and career growth, and continued nonsense is saying, quote, that is the way it has always been done, unquote. I hear that at every town meeting with staff. We desperately need ethical standards that are applicable to staff, commissions, committees, and elected officials. Groton citizens have to be considered number one. Local government's purpose is to serve and not to be served by the people, and this attitude has wrongly flip-flopped in Groton long ago. If there is staff or management not carrying their load or unwilling to give it all, then we have to make change and not make excuses just because it is a lot of work to build a case for that employee's expulsion, and thus just accept the continued costly mediocrity that has so long prevailed in Groton, especially under our past town manager. In my opinion, a community cannot be successful without active participation of the private sector, business, which Groton has historically failed doing. In fact, we have managed to make the private sector our enemy, and thus our reputation precedes us, and they bypass us when moving their investment dollars to other towns, or more recently to Massachusetts. We need to recognize that the citizens alone cannot support the financial burden of a viable town. We just went through this with this state budget, that we need to have a diversified, inclusive, flexible, participatory, modern, and vibrant business sector, which presently is absent from Groton. Due to past councils allowing management to be preoccupied with getting to their retirement, forming fiefdoms, and kowtowing to special interests for re-election purposes, we have completely ignored our, let me move the page here, financial stability, and now we are stuck with a fund balance that has been pillaged to give the image of no or lesser property tax increases. Now we are at risk of having our bond rating reduced, which will further make us unattractive to outside investors. You see, once the spiral downward begins, it gains momentum and thus becomes increasingly more difficult to reverse. We need to recognize that we have to have a strong foundation before we go off and spend for things that we just cannot afford, though they may seem nice to have at the time. We need to be light on our feet and get rid of all non-productive procedures and committees that turns investors off and forces them to go to our competitors that are more agile and becoming more so every day, and they are all around us. In my professional opinion, the most important department is economic development, and I think this council agrees with that. And ours is mediocre to the point I feel it is somewhat non-existent. There should be a standalone department with leadership that knows how to sell, has charisma, is bold, confident, can wine and dine with billionaires, and lead a team of staff and contractual help if need be that can do the soup to nuts of completely rebuilding Groton as an economic powerhouse as it once was, or I feel has the potential to be even better than it once was. It needs to have supporting staff that can create professional-looking websites, advertising brochures, and videos, and possess financial and banking skills to accurately find and organize investment financing on the private and public markets. We need to go to bid on every contracted agent, which will minimally keep everyone honest because they then will know that they can be replaced. You need to realize that there is much more to an hourly price than simply a dollar amount. Groton exists in a competitive environment, so why should not our agents who serve us? We need to look at these agents' work product regularly and decide if it is serving the needs of the project, and write into their contract, as us business people do, exit clauses so that we do not get tied up forever in bad deals. Sometimes, as in Balfour Beatty and marketing large projects, we need to face that we do not have the expertise in-house. And it's most economic to find outside expert for those situations and do so with a goal to win, and not throw the talent as it just happened in the Oddfellows fiasco. I find the fact that Groton is now an alliance district an embarrassment, and something that has to be managed immediately to get out of as soon as possible. And we're now in the company of cities such as Hartford, Bridgeport, Waterbury, and New Britain, all cities that struggle mightily with getting investors to invest in their communities, and as we all know, are not cities we view as the shining cities of our state. It is another sign of the quickening spiral down that I referred to earlier. Dr. Grenier, who was on the first show here, is somehow trying to rationalize with me that this is a good thing. No, it is not in any way you look at it, and it's disturbing to me that he has such thoughts. On the economic front, it is as damaging to us as a downgrade in our bond rating would be. Lastly, by my hard initial work, we have formed an unprecedented group for Groton called the Groton Renaissance Committee, which has on it the town manager, the City of Groton mayor, the superintendent, a new former commercial, she's not on anymore, real estate broker, and an artist architect that we have contracted with, and sometimes the planner, economic development manager, and an ordinary citizen, and lastly, myself. This group's goal is to determine how to best utilize Groton's assets to create future growth, and thus a more secure tax base, such as taking full advantage of the hiring at EB, our easy access to New York and Boston, getting on the tax rolls, our many abandoned schools and private properties, and so on. The group has started marketing the largest contiguous commercial property in Groton's history, now tabbed Groton Gateway Project. And we will be talking about that a lot in the future. Has begun the process of approaching our largest two employers, EB and Pfizer, to get them to be active investors in our town and to approach investment houses so as to help prudential investors by forwarding real financing options to them, which will keep them here rather than going off to one of our competitors in other towns. A balanced Groton Renaissance Committee, in my expert opinion, is essential to the unprecedented growth that Groton has the potential to achieve. Groton will continue to suffer until we get a council that puts its foot down on all the issues I have discussed and hires and demands professional leadership and staff to put revitalization of Groton ahead of career building and retirement. I hope this council will finally do the job they were put into office to do and make the hard choices that our citizens have given you the huge responsibility to make. Good luck to all of us in facing these very large challenges ahead. Okay. So, I'm going to open the phone right now. I'm going to break this down into all its parts. There's a lot in what I just said, and we're going to break it down. That's going to be the rest of the discussion tonight. And if we don't finish tonight, it's going to flow over to the next show. So the number is 860, I guess it's on the screen, 445-7499. The first part, I say that the new council has to be willing to make change and listen to all of us and not just a select few. We have a habit in Groton. I've been to budgets where they always look at last year's budget and start from there. And that's a really, really bad technique to use. You should start from zero and rethink every line item on a budget. So I am asking this new council to look at everything with fresh eyes and change the old ways. We need to change our old ways, and that's a big one. This new council needs to understand that department heads, contractors, the town attorneys, they pad budgets. Okay? Everybody does it because you hope for, you know that, you assume that you're going to get cut in some way. And town council in the past has to understand and realize that. I went to a council meeting, I recall, when Gary Schneider, he's our head of public works, came in and he wanted to buy, I don't remember how many, 3 or 4 electric cars. It was a lot of money. I have a hybrid. I think it works terrible. I don't see why we have to get involved with electric cars. And we spent that night, they didn't ask, the old council asked nothing. We spent about $500,000 in 5 seconds with no questions asked. That's got to stop. This new council's got to question every line item and really question, do we need that? Is there a better, less costly way? Okay. I'm going to revisit the Oddfellows issue. We had a very bad vote by the last council. The budget, they settled on a contract that is terrible, dreadful, a matter of fact. They did that about a week ago. That's one of the things they did before they left office. They settled on a fixed payment of $60,000 a year for 10 years. I'm a landlord. You never do a rent. I don't know, any of you renters out there, you don't settle on no rent stays fixed for 10 years. That's ridiculous. I mean, you want whatever a loaf of bread costs in the beginning of your contract, the income should buy the same loaf of bread every year. So and we call those kickers that bumps are put in. No bumps. Unheard of. This is unheard of in the business world. And they're going to complain, because I'm not mentioning, they are paying the amount of valuation in excess of $60,000. And I don't know how much that is. That's going to change every time we reassess. I don't know what that number is. We got to look at Balfour Beatty. I gave a whole show to it. It's the gorilla in the room. Last year they cost us $7.5 million. This now council cannot ignore it, as previous councils all have. They cannot be intimidated. They have to be bold. We have talked about this in the Renaissance Committee. An Oddfellow solution is not viable. We need to get specialized attorneys in real estate tax law who are good. Names have been given to the town manager. This has to be dealt with very seriously by this council. It should be one of the things on the top of their agenda. No Ink Garden. I did a whole show on it. A complete fiasco. Needs attention by this council. Now, let's go to the next part of what I said, transparency. We can begin this. They formed a rules committee last night. At the committee of the whole meeting, this is a small gripe that I have, and I think I've mentioned in other shows, that I believe in you work among the people, that I don't think you're an elected official, you should be above the people. The people are your boss. And committee of the whole meetings, and this started, I believe, the council before the last one, which was really a very screwed up council. That's the one where Rita Schmidt was the mayor of. And I think at that one they started where they sit for the committee of the whole up on their podium up top. And I think this is really quite bad. You have to roll up your sleeves at the committee of the whole. That's where you really get discussion done, work done. And please, councilors, move down to where we all are at the tables in front. You got the work area to do it. Increase the public presentation time to 10 minutes. It always used to be that way. In the old days, things weren't as complicated. Well, they're much more complicated now. On these complicated issues, what I just read you, how can you do that in 5 minutes? You can't. You got to change it to 10, please. You have to give a reason why you are making decisions. This is part of being transparent. The poster child of this is the Oddfellows thing that went on, where the council did a 180-degree reversal of their first decision. They did not explain why they undid it. We all know why. It was a political decision, because the senator Summers had a hard time with what they did, and this is I consider it theft. What went on, terrible, from all of you. And there's no reason why this bill should have been preserved. The council gave no explanation of why they changed their opinion 180 degrees. A big one for transparency. Big one. Appoint people to your commissions and committees based upon their qualifications and abilities rather than as political favors. Commissions and councils, committees serve an extraordinarily important job in any town. They are what gets allowed, especially the land use ones, what gets built in your town. They control that. And they can make it very hard for outsiders to come in and invest in your town. They can make it impossible, and we've had this problem in the past. Supposedly we're combining the two land use commissions, or the planning and zoning. I wish it was sooner than later. And I'm going to give an example. My father, some of you old-timers may remember him, Chipperini, and my father was a civil engineer, very knowledgeable guy, very handy guy, very capable. He tried, and I have tried, I'm an engineer too, to get on a land use commission. My father died with ever serving time on a land use commission. He is the type of person who would have been very valuable to be on a commission, but he was not a political person. He was not, I think he was a registered independent. And this is the type of people, getting on a commission should not depend on what party you're in. It's irrelevant what party you're in to serve on a commission. What should be relevant is your skills, what you bring to the commission. This council has announced, they announced last night, as their #1 thing is to bring economic development to Groton. We need doers and facilitators rather than those who believe the status quo has worked, because it hasn't. So when they interview people to go on commissions, they shouldn't just grab whoever is there. They should, be choosy. And I understand. They're going to say, well, they're volunteers. Well, yeah, but we need skill. And Groton has it. But those kind of people stay away because they want to get things done. And when you don't get things done, you don't get the good people. Okay? And as I said, you should not have to be a part of the political system to get onto a commission. And I think the whole attitude of appointing commissions should change. Okay, next. Shadow government. I'm going to define, Wikipedia has a definition of shadow government. The shadow government is based on the notion that real and actual political power resides not with publicly elected representatives, but with private individuals who are exercising power behind the scenes, beyond the scrutiny of democratic institutions. According to this belief, the official elected government is in reality subservient to the shadow government, who are the true executive power. Okay? This is what's been going on, folks, in Groton a long time. And if I went back historically, I could find every shadow person. Now, shadow governments aren't necessarily bad, but in most instances they are bad. And in Groton, they've been bad. So the council before the last council, which was the first Democratic council after 25 years, the shadow government was Mark Ofinger, because Rita Schmidt let it be. And the last council was Senator Summers, because they listened to everything she wanted, and that's what they did. They didn't do anything based on what was good for Groton. They did it based on what was good for Senator Summers, and what's good for Senator Summers is good for her getting elected. And I'll get into, and Rita, getting reelected is not necessarily what's good for Groton, okay? But I'm a believer, if you do what's good for the people, you will be reelected. So you don't have to play these games. And this is the reason, 4 years ago, I'm a Republican, I tell you, but I don't really care about parties. I care about who gets on that's going to believe in revitalizing Groton. So I vote cross-party lines because I don't really care what party you're in. 4 years ago was a complete disaster. The Republicans were the minority party, but Rita Schmidt, under the hand of Mark Ofinger, listened to everything he said, and he favored the Republicans. And Rich Moravsik did the same thing, but with a smile. So essentially, the same group that was in power for the last council was in power with the council before. So essentially, that council really ran Groton for 4 years. It was a disaster. And the last two councils, if you look at it, they absolutely got nothing done. And I think that came out in my second show and my third show. They're going to claim, maybe they can get a little credit. They got a new town manager, but Mark Ofinger saw the writing on the walls with all the financial problems in Hartford. He was retiring. So I don't consider that a heroic act. I consider that a thing that they had to do. They had to replace the manager. And the word's still out on the new manager, John Burt, if he's going to be good for us or not. I don't know yet. I'm going to talk a lot about that. So I'm going to talk a little bit here about the shadow government we had 4 years ago. The Democrats in Groton are more conservative than the Republicans, believe it or not. That's what I have found. During that time, and I'm talking about 4 years, the fund balance has deteriorated. The fund balance is the amount of money that we have to put aside that Moody's, they're a rating agency that when we go to borrow money, they put a rating on every town in the country on what level of risk you are. And we are a AA2, which is pretty good. Our fund balance, due to Senator Summers in 2013, let's show number 11, Frank. I show something like this every single show. This is the cumulative mill rate change. And if you look in 2013, since then, our mill rate has gone up 23.19%. This is humongous, okay? And it went down. It really didn't go down. It went up because they borrowed from the fund balance. So it looked to you, it's what's called smoke and mirrors. It looked to you like they didn't go up in the mill rate. But they really did because they borrowed from our piggy bank, okay? So tomorrow, Moody's is visiting, according to the town manager. Our fund balance is down to, according to the town manager, down to $7 million. Getting the alliance, and we're going to talk about that. The alliance, being in the alliance, we get an extra $1 million, and according, I don't know where the additional $1 million, but we're going to go up to $9 million because we're so privileged to be in this alliance district. We should be at 15 million, which has given us for years a A2 rating. Say your prayers tonight because they're coming tomorrow, and I feel sick about that we may be downgraded. Countless people have left Groton in those 4 years. The All Fellows Home got out of paying millions in property taxes. In that 4 years, as I showed you, our mill rate went up 23.13%. Balfour Beatty in these 4 years is stealing millions from us, millions, to pay their costs. And a shadow government often surfaces because it's serving the purpose of getting that person who is the shadow government reelected. Or maybe in the case of the town manager, helping him keep his job. And in return, the elected body that's being manipulated by this shadow government thinks that they're going to get reelected. They think they're going to get a reelection out of that. And this last election, an election 2 years ago, proved that because we didn't get served very well. And they were really landslides in change of, and I hope it doesn't happen in 2 years. If a council gets things done and does it for you, the voters, you don't need to do this. You don't need to have a shadow government. You don't need any of this. Just do what's right for the people, for your constituency, and stop the smoke and mirrors. Okay, number 4, what I said on my presentation to the council, responsive staff. I gave an example of police, Captain Sinagra not being responsive to me, okay, for a very serious need I have. I think I'm having patches that are being stolen. He should be reprimanded. He should be told by it should go from the town manager to the chief, who I spoke to the town manager about this, and he should be said, you call Ms. Chipperini and get her problem resolved. Hasn't happened. Groton has a terrible reputation for being a bad place to do business, and that is something that has followed us. And we have this because we never have the guts of getting rid of staff that does a lot of damage to us. I don't believe Mark Offenshire ever got rid of anybody for bad performance. Michael Murphy, the former planner, probably did the most damage of anybody in Groton. Mark Tebbetts, former inspector, some of you may remember him. I can't remember her name, Ann something, she's a former tax assessor. I could do a show on each one of these people. Mark Oeffinger himself should have never been kept as long as he was. So it's known in Groton, if you get a job in Groton, you have a job for life. I think you'd have to be a murderer to get laid off. It's almost, and another thing we do, which is unbelievable, we give out awards like T-ball, the T-ball syndrome I call it. We give out awards. If you breathe, you get an award. You know, I had to hear that Paige Bronk just got an award. I have no idea what he got an award for. He hasn't done anything yet. You know, I'm not against awards, but you got to do things that are out of the ordinary. Going to meetings and showing up for things doesn't give you an award. You know, just like the little kids when they play T-ball, everybody's got to get an award. We're talking about adults here, and they're getting awards. And civil servants often, they're, you know, that's what they live for. No, it should be, an award should be given for achieving something that is extraordinary, okay? I often read the newspaper up in Nashua, New Hampshire. I like Nashua. It's doing very well, by the way, just over the border from Massachusetts. And they just got rid of their economic development director. And by the way, their department, I'm going to talk about that in this show or the next, is a separate department, and they didn't like what he was doing. And they're much more booming there than we are, and they said he wasn't doing the job for them, so they let him go. This is unheard of in Groton. Why? Why is this unheard of? Okay, move on. Number 5 I have from my presentation. Ethical standards. This council has to vote by state law very soon on having an ethics committee or not. Groton has never had an ethics committee, and I think it's about time. And I think it's terrible that we haven't had one. And there are many instances. I think this whole issue with Oddfellows should have been, if we had an ethics committee, it should be brought before. Why did they change their mind? You know, this would have gone before an ethics commission. And it's a part of cronyism to not have one, and it keeps it going. And they have to be, the ethics, they have to be applied equally among staff, commissions, committees, and elected officials, okay? And I have a feeling, I hope, they've been talking about it, that this new council is going to have an ethics commission. So let's see. Now, there are bad sides to having an ethics commission, and one is that it can go bad on you because, again, as I told you in one of the categories earlier, that if you appoint people where it's political favors, it can be a very biased commission and not be ethical themselves. So we have to think about it. If you have one, you got to have people on it who are going to be ethical themselves. So there is a negative side to that. All Groton citizens and our needs have to be number one before anything else. Really important. What does that mean? What does all mean, all Groton citizens? Now, all does not mean that a few houses around the garden over in Noank, whose view would be blocked if other houses were built there. That is not all of Groton. The people who live at Oddfellows, they are not paying, you know, high enough fees there to support the company to pay taxes to us, so they benefit. That is not all of Groton. The people who live in Balfour Beatty, their rents are lower because they don't pay taxes there, Balfour Beatty, so that's not all of Groton. And this is something, you know, this council's got to figure out what all means. So, you know, I think we got to change our whole thinking on this. If we did, I guarantee you our taxes would not have increased 8.7% back in July. And if we cared about people, this council, I know they're not going to do it because they need that increase for the fund balance. They should be giving us our money back this July with lowering the tax. People said, how can they give it back? Well, the way they do that is they lower your tax bill. So they can give it back. And they've gone up on us 8.7%, but they've gone up all the 2 to 2.5% per year all past councils on staff pay. So this is a problem. We got to change. Every new councilor should ask themselves when voting, how my vote affects all in Groton and not just the special few. And they vowed last night that they will do that. They emphasize this, so we will see. I put them up to the challenge. Okay, number 7 in my presentation, a big one. Participation by the private sector. It's been non-existent in the life of Groton. Non-existent. To me, it is imperative for successful economic development in a town to do this. Now, I've been in North Carolina, near the Smoky Mountains down there, very booming area. Georgia, South Carolina even. North Carolina, where I was, Greenville, I believe, it was really interesting. I was in I like tools. So I was in some chain that we don't have up here. I forgot the name of it, a big one. Sort of like Harbor Freight, but a little better quality. And everybody in there was talking, the employees, about a Honda jet. Apparently Honda has a business jet company that just opened a plant there. And I could not believe all of the employees who aren't working there themselves were enthusiastic that Honda Jet was coming to their community. And I believe they had already opened. This doesn't happen here, where community is that intrigued and that caring. This is great. And I'm sure their government worked very hard to attract Honda Jet to come there. EB and Pfizer, there are big employers here. They don't participate in, we're going to be approaching them. They don't participate in any way. This has never happened in the history of Groton. There used to be the High Fever Follies, which was a wonderful thing as a kid I used to go to, where they did a variety show where the employees and us citizens could go. We bought tickets, and it went to some good cause, and it was a fun thing. That ended years ago. But, you go to many communities, and like Coca-Cola in Atlanta, they have a whole area that they were investors in that's called the Coke Center, and it's really nice. They are investors in the community, and let me tell you, there's a benefit to them to do that because they want to attract talented help, and that talented help demands certain kind of lifestyle when they live in an area. So when you lose that help, you have to retrain them, and that costs the company a lot of money. So we have never had a good relationship with our biggest employers, and we have to start doing that. And I think this Renaissance Committee, we are going to. And I have learned that Pfizer, remember they moved a whole pile of people out to Cambridge, Mass, because they thought it would be better and greater than being here in Groton, because there's all the schools up there, Harvard, MIT, BU, etc. And they thought it'd be better there. Well, I found out that it's not been working because they're losing help, and they're starting to move everybody back here. So we are gaining. Pfizer, I believe, is moving people back to Groton. This is really good for us. So I'm really enthused about that. I'm going to discuss the Groton Renaissance Committee briefly. As I told you, it's a group that was formed, but with all the leadership of Groton. And I'm on there, and I think there should be more from the private sector. I think we have a new town manager. I'm going to talk a little bit about him right now. I haven't said a boo about him because he's been here, for 6 months. I like to give a person a chance. He's very quiet. He's very cautious. He's very political. That's not good in my opinion because politics often, as I said, doesn't jive with what's best for Groton. He has no experience in the private sector. He comes from northern Michigan. I've been there. It's a beautiful area, but it's got more elk than it does people. I would be willing to bet, and he could correct me on this, I bet the area he covered, which was a district, is probably 3 times the size of Rhode Island, but probably a lot less people. I believe the budget he oversaw was $25 million there, and it's $119 here. And I'm getting to know him. I don't know him super well yet. I will be probably talking a lot more about him. I would like him to come on the show. I've probably met with him more times than any single other person, and we will see. I think he's holding back because he wants to see what this new council is going to be all about. You got to understand, his boss has changed, and that's very, very difficult on him because he doesn't know what to expect. So we'll see with him. Now, we need to have a very, number 8, I talked about in my beginning spiel, strong economic foundation. A weak foundation has many, many problems. It can lead to a lot of bad things. I was on the phone with a developer today. He told me about the need for a strong investor partnership with the community. If our bond rating goes down tomorrow, he said, you know, I didn't tell him this because we don't know yet, but he said, you know, I need a community that can also borrow and be an investor. If we get a downgrade tomorrow, that's going to make that a lot harder. So this is really worrisome. Prospective investors and people looking to work and live here look closely at the economic well-being of a town. It's important. The fund balance is a large indicator of the economic health of a town. And as I told you, ours is at $7 million. It's going to go up to $9 million, and we should be at 15. And you can thank Senator Heather Bond Summers for that, from what she did back in 2013, and we're not out of it yet. And I'm not going to have time to show to do this, but she thinks it's a good thing that we're in the Alliance District, and I will talk about that in the next show. For all you education bugs, I know there's a lot of you out there. You can do a lot more stuff if we have a good financial foundation. You know, you may view this Alliance District, and I'm going to talk about it on the next show, but that is really a bad thing, and because it's hurting our ability to do other things that brings money in to help support the education system. So I think that's a good stopping point. We got a lot more to go here in this discussion. We didn't get any calls tonight. I'm a little frustrated with that. So if you're too bashful, you know, email me. Last time we got a lot more calls. So please give me an email, and we need help. Now, as I said, the next show is going to be on Tuesdays at 7, Thursday at 6:30, and Saturday at 9. That's this show. And the next show will be on the 25th. Put it on your next month at 6:30. At the end, we're going to be listing businesses again that I could think of that have shut down in Groton. I'm sorry we're ending with something kind of sad, but you got to talk about it. And the pictures behind it are new, and it's of all the businesses that are empty in Groton. So we have a new council, a fairly new town manager, and a new year coming up, which means it's time for change. And I hope and pray that this new year will be much better for Groton than the last 4. And the best gift for me would be that I no longer have to do this show, because we would then have a government that serves the people in an honest, fair, and productive way. Merry Christmas, everyone, and see you next year, and have a happy, happy New Year from Shake Up Groton. Good night.